Welcome back to the 628 Dirt Rooster channel, where hobby beekeeping is a way of life.
Man, look at this box. I'm telling you what, good grief. Good gravy. All these, I'll show you in a still shot, all these frames are covered with delicious honeycomb on top, just like these are. What they're doing right now is they're cleaning all that up because I broke all that up and disturbed it when I opened the box. So they're in there getting busy doing their work, cleaning it all up. Y'all move, we're trying to get some pictures here. Look at that. That was just a valley of honey, and they've just about dried it up. I hadn't looked at it in a week and a half or 2 weeks maybe. Come on, don't go out on me. But decided I needed to do something with it today because they're bearding on the front, and I was like, they're gonna swarm if I don't do something. So what I'm gonna do, this has got medium frames in it, so the frames are only about to here, and it's probably, that's the bottoms off of some other medium frames that I was cleaning up. Probably got comb drawn all off the bottoms of them. I'll cut that bottom comb off. I'm gonna stick it all back into a medium box, consolidate this and some other drawn medium frames I've got into a medium box, and then put a deep on top. And we're coming into a good flow right now, so they may fill the deep up as well. I doubt they'll go too deep before it flows over, but they'll certainly fill the medium and some of the deep, no doubt. But I want to get the brood off of the medium frames, get it back in deep frames. I really hate that I've got any mediums on the yard. I just hate fooling with them. You get mixed up equipment and trying to make nucs after you run a bunch of mediums through winter, and I always end up with a mess like this. So I think I'm gonna take every medium I've got that I'm not using at the moment, give it to my dad because he seems to like them. I'm gonna go to all deeps. See what kind of, right in there, don't be messing with me. See what kind of progress they're making, cleaning that out. They're getting there. About another 5 minutes they'll have all that honey dried out of there. Okay, right at this point we have a major technical malfunction. Audio crashed. I swapped from my cell phone to my camera because my cell phone storage was about full, and my camera didn't pick up any audio. And as mad as that makes me, and as bad as I hate to do this, I'm gonna voice over because I thought I did a good teaching video here, and I just hate to delete it. So right now on this EZ Nuc box, I'm just showing you where the bees are lined up along the edge of the box. I don't know really how much you can see of that because in this little edit window I can't see a whole lot of the bees lined up. But because of they usually have the lid to work on, I've got that lid flipped back over, so now they're reduced. Basically the space of one side of a deep frame is about what that lid is. That's room that they normally be walking and working, and now they're just hanging out on the sidewalls. These EZ Nuc boxes, when I pull frames out of them, especially on an over full box like this, I always pull this front facing frame first, away from the lid. You can see the lid's on the other side. That side's a little more rigid. This side easily pulls out to give you room to work. And so I broke the honey connection. There was honey or comb connection. There was comb from that frame to the front wall. I broke that, pulled the box out a little bit, break the connection of the two frames together, try to run some more bees off of it because it's just really a packed box. You'll see when we get into this thing how really over full it is. Let me zoom in on this a little bit, maybe you can see better. Right now I'm having a little difficulty pulling this frame out because the bottom comb extending off was hung up in the bottom of the box under that other frame, and it came out alright. But I'm looking for the queen right here. Trying to find her in a mess like this is difficult sometimes because there's just so many bees you're trying to look through, especially as I get further in. They're just really piled up on the combs. Right, so what I'm gonna do here is I'm taking all these 10 frame or all these mediums and putting them out of this nuc back into a 10 frame medium. I'm gonna cut those long combs off the bottom, and I was gonna frame them. I ended up not doing that because I just ran out of time. It got dark on me and had a lot of other things going on, so just basically these extended, looking for, see what's, I'm looking at that comb right there to see what's in it. So these extended combs, I just cut them off. I have a trash comb bucket sitting there next to me, and I just drop them in that trash comb bucket. And these frames, if I didn't say it before, I'm going to transition these 5 medium frames into this box that I'm sitting there in front of, and I've got 5 other drawn combs that I'll add to that, basically turning them into giving them about half again the space that they have in that deep box right there. And then I'm going to work them into a deep box on top of that. And boy, do I wish I could remember what I'm saying here, because I can tell that I'm describing something and telling you what I'm thinking, but I just don't remember what it was. So I tell you, voicing over something that you did a week ago is kind of tough. Alright, right here I know what I'm doing. I'm showing you the tops, the drawn out combs on the tops. I'm not cleaning the tops of the top bars on these frames, because if I was putting a lid on this box I would, but because I'm going from this to putting a 10 frame deep on top of that, and there's going to be a gap between the top of this frame and the bottom of the next frame up, and I don't want that. I want something that they can walk directly up on, so I'm going to leave that comb on that top bar there. Any comb that's sticking off the top bar that used to be tied to the lid, I want it touching the bottoms of the deep frames if I can. So I'm going to leave that on there. That's something I'd normally clean off if I was putting a lid on top of this. And here again, of course, we're just running bees off a comb just so we've got room to work. And I don't smoke the whole box, just the area that I want to work. And I'm trying to reduce the numbers of bees on those combs. I still got some heavily drawn combs, and I've got some of that extended comb down in the bottom of the box that I've got to worry about. I think I dropped one off of this one when I pulled it out. I think the whole bottom piece fell off of this one. Let's see. Am I correct? Yes. Okay. So there was an extension on the bottom of this one. It either fell off, or it was stuck to the bottom of the box or something, but it's down in the box. And I'm just doing a quick once over for the queen, and then this will get in the box as well, and I'll move on to the next comb. I think this was the driest comb, or the driest frame as far as comb build or brood or honey in the whole box. I didn't wax any of these frames. These are all some really cheap frames. The ears break off of them fairly easy. They're kind of thin, but because they're thin, they seem to draw on them well, and I think that's what it is. I think it's because they're so thin that the bees are able to warm them better than they are these thicker right cell and things like that. And so these were not pre-waxed. I just put them in there dry. They started drawing on them, and they don't burk on them a lot like they do a thicker foundation. So as garbage as they are, I like them for that reason. The bees don't seem to have a problem drawing on them, and they kind of stay tight. They not really a lot of cross comb, as you'll see in this box. Again, all these frames in this box started out completely unwaxed, and I haven't done anything to correct any cross combing or anything like that. So you'll see what we've got as we go through this thing. Okay, here goes a good frame, and they draw them out beautifully. They draw them out to the size of a deep frame like this, and but right here is where I notice we've got queen cells. We've got some really nice Really well developed queen cells on this frame. And so now I'm now I'm like, oh, I gotta find this queen quick, because they could swarm while I'm sitting there working on them. Not they typically won't. I never have had one do that, but they at this point they're really close to being ready to fly the coop. And I'm actually looking for eggs in these frames as I'm going through this, and I haven't seen any eggs. Uh, a few young larvae is the youngest thing that I've seen, but no eggs. So I know that my queen has quit laying in preparation to fly, unless she's laid on some other frames, which I still am going to keep an eye out for. But this frame and those first two, there's no eggs in whatsoever. Right now I'm checking these queen cells to see if they look like any of them have emerged. And at first glance, I didn't think they had, but the closer I looked at one of those had actually emerged. One of those doubles there, the bigger one, had emerged already. And so now I'm really at this point where I realize that there's a queen, a virgin and a mated queen running around this box. Now I'm really looking. So I'll edit out a lot of the time I spent looking, because there's so many bees. It's just hard to find, especially a virgin, but even a mated queen in a group of bees like this is just difficult. So I shook all the bees off. I'm still looking for eggs again, and getting ready to cut that brood off of that frame. So this is brood that I want to save. Like I say, I end up not saving it. I just ran short on time. It got dark on me. Temperature dropped to 60 something, high 50s maybe. The brood probably got chilled anyway before I had a chance to do anything with it. Right now it's an hour before dark, and there's still a lot of light out, but I'm using a flashlight to check for eggs. Really useful to have something like this. This is a WOWTAC flashlight that I've got the box sitting next to me. I'll tell you what it is. This is a WOWTAC A5. This is the cool white that I'm using. It's a 3600 lumen light, and WOWTAC sent me two of these things, and I really love them. They have that's a moonlight setting right there, so I can dial it down to what I need, or I can turn it up to sunlight mode, or whatever it is. But that's probably 2 lumens, I think, and really good for checking for eggs. I love these lights where you can adjust the beam on them and stuff, and it's durable, waterproof. I've had a couple of them from this company, and thankful that they sent me 2 more. So here's the WOWTAC A5, bad little light, very well built. There you go. I'm showing the quality. Maybe I'll drop it in a bucket of water later on and show you how it's waterproof. But yeah, great little light. I'll put a link down in the description if you're interested in flashlights. And I use a lot of them. I've got probably 6 or 8 flashlights in my truck. They're very important in this kind of work. And who don't love a good flashlight? Okay, now I'm taking my hive tool and very carefully cutting these queen cells out. You don't want to cut the back of them too shallow, or crush the cell in any way. You got to be really careful when you're taking these things off. You don't want to oblong them, distort them, crush them, cut the back of them open. And a lot of times when you cut these things off, there's drone brood all around them, so you might think that you've cut into the queen cell and you're seeing royal jelly. So here's where I'm checking that cell, and I realize that it's open already. So we've got 1 virgin queen out. And anyway, when you cut these cells off, a lot of times there'll be royal jelly or larvae on the back of them, and you think, I messed it up. But it's not. It's just a drone brood that was right up next to that cell. So that's 2 cells I can save. 1 emerged already, and then I'm going for a third right there. These are really well developed, really nice looking cells. Gonna produce some good queens out of them. Okay, we're done removing cells. Now it's time to cut the brood off to fit. This is easily frameable. It's short, of course, but still easy to frame. It's nice and rigid, and got a lot of cap brood, and there's a lot of bees right there. Here's where we go for frame number 4. Another one drawn out fairly well. Not completely as even as the other one, but still drawn out to the size of the box. They'll draw out to the space they have. And if that space is the size of a 10 frame deep, that's what they'll do. I could actually put these frames into a 10 frame deep, but I don't want the frame. I want them on deep frames. So instead of using these medium frames, I'll get them on deep frames eventually. And then I'll take these medium boxes, once they're kind of moved up into some deep boxes, I'll take these medium boxes and rotate them around and put them on top as mediums. And you can do that a lot quicker than you'd think, because you got worker brood in most of this, and you can put a queen excluder under it and put it on top, and any brood will emerge out of that. The queen will be stuck below the queen excluder and she won't be able to lay back in it. So you can work them out of this faster than you'd think, but you got to have some drawn deeps for her to work. And at the moment I don't have any drawn comb to put on them. So there's some more cells, more queen cells. Just every queen cell in this thing was really nicely formed and fairly easy to cut off because of where they were located. I didn't damage any of them removing them, I don't recall. There goes a prison shank queen cell removal technique right there. I think Mr. Ed must have showed me that. With his little prison shanks he keeps on him. Just collecting those queen cells, harvesting the cells. Just carefully slicing and rolling them off. Checking the top. That one looked like it had been chewed a little bit. It wasn't opened yet. Still had a queen in it. Another queen cell. This is where I'm showing the drone brood on the back of it. It looks like I've damaged the queen cell, but that's drone larva on the back of that that's exposed, and not the queen. And then again, I'm checking for eggs. I can see a few larvae, a few uncapped worker larvae. I'm still not seeing any eggs at this point. Got my little WOWTAC A5 and box that one up and go on for the last frame. And before I go on to number 5, you remember I told you I dropped a bottom comb off one of those frames? Well, there it is. And I wish I'd had time to use all that, because it really was quite a bit of brood in there. On all those that I cut off, probably total equivalent to that would be a full 10 frame deep of brood. So a good amount of brood there that I disposed of. But you know, they'll build it back. But another piece that's just the right dimensions for. They've drawn that medium frame out to match that box. They do really good at that. Sometimes they attach them, but more times than not they don't. They just draw them out to match the height. And it's pretty convenient if you're transferring them into a 10 frame deep, because they are a nice fit. But I just got to get these off of these medium plastic frames and onto some wooden frames. Now we're getting deep into thick bee territory. It's getting to the point where if there was a queen there, she'd almost have to be standing up waving at you to see her, because there's just so many bees on that frame that it's just an inch thick, an inch deep front and back. It'd be nearly impossible unless even if she was marked, it'd be hard to find her. So I ended up going through this frame probably for 5 minutes on this one frame. There's so many bees there, and I gave up looking for her and cut the bottom of it off, stuck them in the box. I actually did shake them off all in the box, but even with that I couldn't see anything. You can see the bees just kind of flowing down the frame just because of the weight of them. too many bees to try to find a queen. Here's where I'm finding more queen cells on this frame. There's 2 right there that I point out. Just lots of queen cells. Didn't really have any place to put them. I had two boxes that I knew were queenless, but I had one mated queen banked, and I put her in the one there on this yard, and then I took these cells to try to put them in another box that you'll see later. Kind of a screw up there, but you'll see that. Hang around for the screw up. There's a good look at the brood pattern, laying pattern on that frame after I shake everything off of it. Again, more brood on the bottom of that frame that I couldn't use. But man, look at the amount of bees in that box still. There's enough bees left in that nuc box to make another nuc. And then we'll harvest these last 2 cells. Cut that brood off the bottom. I guess I did damage one because there it was. I just tossed it. I must have crushed it. There's a good one. Alright, here's where we get a little bit experimental for some of you that don't know much about hive beetle larvae or hive beetles. That frame right there came out of a hive that had been beetle slimed, and bees typically will not work frames that have beetle slime on them. They just don't like the smell of it. You might get a few bees on there, but not a lot. But when you got a really overpopulated box like this, and one thing you got to be sure of is that there's no beetle larva on that frame. But if you don't, and you got to freeze them most of the time for that, because there's tiny ones that you'll miss. But if you've got a really overpopulated box like this, and you can clean up one frame by sticking it in there, then I'll do it sometimes. But don't take that for an example from me, because if you don't know what you're doing, or even if you do know what you're doing, you could screw something up just putting a nasty frame in there that maybe had beetle larvae on it. This one I knew for sure didn't, or I wouldn't have stuck it in there. But matter of fact, I put 2 in this box that had been beetle slimed that I knew for a fact didn't have any larvae left on them, and I let these bees deal with cleaning that up. They will clean it up, they just don't like it. So right here, what I'm doing is another queen search, checking this box again to see if maybe she walked off on the box. That's not super uncommon that she'll walk off a frame on a box when you start disturbing the combs. And still didn't find her. Gonna end up dumping this box of bees over in there and just setting that corpulus nuc off to the side somewhere. If I remember correctly. But I know for a fact I didn't find either of the queens. And like I said, I think there's 2 queens in this box right now. I think there's a virgin and a mated. And sure would have loved to have found either one of them, but no such luck. Right here, what I'm doing with these queen cells. When I pick cells like this, I normally try to keep them with the bees. I try to keep them on the top bars or wherever I'm working, just to keep some heat on them, just to keep some bees around them, working them. It's better than putting them in the seat of my truck and coming back to them an hour later and they're chilled or whatever. I just try to keep them in the hive until I'm just absolutely done with them and ready to pull them out and go do something, go put them somewhere. So that's why I'm laying them on the top bars there. But the bad part of that is, if, like on this box, what's really easy to do is you get so many bees piled up on top of those cells, you forget the cells are there and you go to put a lid on and crush them. I didn't do that here, but I came pretty close, so be aware. I'm smoking them up a little bit, do the final shake and dump, make sure we don't have a queen in the edge of that box again, and set it off to the side. Yeah, right, there's just a million bees airborne right now, so I'm just kind of backing up, letting them have their space, letting them orient to the box, or come back to the box. Right here, I'll show you my level of protection. you could already see my arms and my head. You see, I ain't got nothing on. And as much as I am disrupting this colony, if there was any chance of getting stung, here it is. I'm in shorts, no undershirt under this shirt, so plenty of gut for them to go after, and nothing on my arms or anything. I don't have any kind of repellent or anything like that on. Just really easy bees to work with. Nothing to it. Nothing to be scared of. Be cautious, but don't be scared. Now I'm to the point where I've got to run all these bees outside of this box, or most of them. I want them inside that medium. More than that, I've got to run all the ones off the top edge of the box so that I can then introduce that 10 frame box on top of this one. I am going to leave a few gaps there because I do have to go back into this box later. I'm not too concerned about them building out in those gaps. They're doing a really good job on these medium frames, and they got a lot of cleanup to do from what I just did right here. This is a lot of damage to those frames for them, so they got to go back and clean all that up, and then I hope to get them working on those deep frames pretty quick. And right here is gently, I've smoked all the bees off the top combs where I left those combs on those top bars. Really gently trying to set this box down, and if you tap them, and I'm not putting much weight on, but if you tap them, they'll move out from under the ledges like that. And that's it. That one's stacked out, ready to go. I'll go back in them in maybe a week just to make sure they're doing what they need to be doing. And here's the march. I don't care how many times I've seen it. It's always fun for me to watch, and I know a lot of you feel the same way because I get a lot of comments about, I love the march. Well, there it is. The march is always fun to watch. Whether you're catching a swarm or introducing bees to a new box or whatever, if you can get on the march, it's just fun to watch. So there's a good view of that right there. They're working up to that 10 frame, working up to that big box. The big box in the sky. My hive stand here is a little crooked, and the box is teetering a little bit. Right there, I'm just showing the combs I cut off. But that teetering hive stand is kind of going to come back to bite me a little later. Now I hate that we lost audio on this because I know there was about 20 more minutes of good teaching, and I know that because that's what I've edited out in this video, that I just don't remember what I was saying. Don't know what I was talking about when I was doing it. I'm just pointing and working. So it's anybody's guess. And that's the end of the silent movie part of this video. Now we're back to the cell phone video, starting now. Now in all that, I only got 2 stings, and some of it, one of them was my fault, I think. I don't really know, but I got stung with this finger when I first started. I think you probably saw that. And the other one was right in the ear next to my earbud. I had earbuds in, and sometimes they go after electronics, which is mainly the reason I use my cell phone to film, mostly because I've got some decent cameras, but man, you don't want to be constantly cleaning up bee garbage, and they like to sting that eyepiece and stuff. You don't want to take your best equipment out in the field and just get it nasty all the time, especially with the kind of work I normally do. That camera would be so loaded up with sheetrock dust and honey, it'd be a shame. I hate to even touch it right now because my fingers are sticky. I got a little bit of cleaning up to do, bee poo and pollen and all that. That's why I use a cell phone mostly, because it cleans real easy, pretty durable, waterproof, water resistant, and it's a whole lot cheaper to replace than that camera and that lens. Not to mention cleaning up my new tripod. I hadn't used it but a couple of times, but that's which one it is. Benro geared head. Come on now, busy here. So that's why this is my go-to. This is like 150 bucks for this and the mount, and that's, you know, almost $700 for that over there. Whole lot easier to deal with replacing or cleaning this thing. The way I transport these cells for a short distance is I'll put them in a paper towel or something. Wrap them in a shirt so they're not laying directly on the heat, and then I turn the seat heater on. Keep their little heinies warm. It's done got dark on me. I don't know if I want to fool it. Ah, no. Shoot. Daggum ants. Well, now I know I ain't gonna fool with it. Ain't nothing I can do with that right now. All these are good already. Well, that pretty well dictates what I'm gonna do with these queen cells. I don't have any other boxes that need cells right now, and they won't be good sitting out overnight. If I put them in anything else that's queen right already, they're gonna just tear them, kill them anyway, tear them down. So I'm gonna go back over to that yard and put 3 or 4 of these cells back in that same box, put a queen excluder underneath of that medium, and let them hash it out. I don't know if a virgin will come out on top, or if the queen, if the mated queen will be the sole survivor of all this. But in the end, I'll have a good queen in there. But after about 5 days, I'll pull that queen excluder off, just in case a virgin kills that mated queen. You know, gotta leave her an opening to go out and get mated. So after about 5 days, I'll pull that queen excluder off, let her go get mated, and then in no more than about 11 days, 12, maybe 14, should have a queen laying again in there. And if the virgins don't make it through all this and that mated queen ends up staying, she should start laying again right away almost. We'll see. Just have to keep an eye on them. This is the way it goes sometimes. Lost one to, and I didn't necessarily lose this box to the ants. The ants is just a symptom of a weak hive. It was already weak when I put this queen in it. I was just putting a laying queen in there, a mated queen in there, just to try to help them come back a little bit. Obviously I waited too late and the ants just took over, so there was still a few bees in there fighting, but most of the colony had absconded. There was a lot more bees in there the other night when I put that queen in there. Win some, you lose some. That's the way it goes. If you're gonna be in beekeeping, you gotta expect to lose a few, because you're going to. Check it. This is the WOWTAC flashlight. Man, you could do some swarm hunting with this thing. 3600 lumens in this little bitty flashlight, and all kinds of different brightness settings. Very handy for bee work, especially at night. It's so bright it's drawing bees in.